Hello, I'm Simon Whistler. You're watching TopTenzNet, and in the video today, the top 10 dark samurai legends. Just before we get started with this video, I do want to say that it is in collaboration with historical researcher and samurai expert Anthony Cummins, and we are taking these samurai legends from his new book, The Dark Side of Japan. I have a copy of it right here. In this book, Anthony and his team, they've taken and translated old spells, witchcraft, other unknown elements of dark Japanese magic, and combined them with a collection of folklore tales, many of which tell of old samurai heroes. Now, I'm going to have a bit more on this book at the end of today's video, so do stay tuned. Today's list is a collection of lesser-known samurai legends that tend towards the darker side of medieval Japanese folklore. Now, do remember that this video is a list of legends. That means some of them may have started out as a true fact, but some of them were created as moral or spooky tales which have been passed around from the Middle Ages and were recorded in the 19th century. Number 10. Out, foxes, out. The ruler of Japan, Lord Toyotomi Hideyoshi, is said to have written an official letter to the god of foxes informing him that if the god of foxes did not stop sending lesser demons to his castle, then the lord of all Japan would kill all of the foxes in the land as an act of revenge. Also, foxes hold a special power, a power that Japanese witches wish to control and use with malice, and often samurai legends describe tales of heroes fighting off these cunning, devious, deceptive, and elusive creatures. So, if you are ever in Japan and there is a dark and hooded figure with a long snout using his scrotum as a drum, beware. It is a dark fox or maybe a magical wolf luring you to your doom. Number 9. The Vampire Cat. There was once a prince who became ill, and each night his vigor drained away with no understandable reason for his decline in health. Coming closer to death, he was surrounded each night by 100 samurai guards, all ready to protect him. But each night, they all fell asleep and the prince became weaker. A lower-ranking samurai, who kept himself pure by washing each night and praising the Buddha, was picked for the duty, and he took with him oiled paper and a spike. That night, placing the paper below him, he stabbed his leg to force himself to stay awake. As the rest of the samurai fell under the enchanted sleep, one of the prince's concubines came in, but upon seeing the wakeful samurai, she asked about the health of the prince and retreated. Each night the spell came, but the sleep was kept away by the stabbing pain in his leg, and each night the concubine entered. The samurai finally confronted the woman with a selection of samurai at his back. When accused of being a life-draining witch, the woman changed form into a giant blood-sucking cat and fought her way out, only to be tracked into this holy night and killed in the mountains. Number 8. The Pilar of Noses. In the 1500s, the samurai of Japan invaded Korea with the intention to invade China. The order was given that they should kill all men, women, and children and leave none alive. Now, for a samurai, the head is of most importance as it represents their victory in battle, but tradition holds that when there are too many heads to carry, the nose of the victim should be taken instead. Now, because of the slaughter in Korea, it is said that 30,000 noses were brought back to Japan, which is also sometimes reported as ears, and that they were buried in a sacred mound in Kyoto, and a pillar was erected on top of them. This monument is fact and still stands to this day, but the actual number of noses is legends, but not unrealistic. Number 7. The Samurai and his Bow. Originally, the bow was the most important weapon for the samurai, and archery was an exquisite skill. Therefore, many legends concerning the bow and arrow grew up around the samurai. For example, to twang the bowstring is a form of purification ritual and is used to drive away evil, or is done over a corpse to expel unwanted and malignant spirits. In battle, samurai would shoot all of their arrows, including ones passed to them from the rear, but one arrow was fixed into the quiver, and this arrow would go with them to the land of the dead to protect them in the afterlife. This, it was known as the Arrow of Death. Legend says that the quiver shape itself was based on the deformed head of a demon. Saliva dripped onto an arrow can kill evil serpents and monster reptiles, while whistling arrows shot in certain directions can ward off the malignant forces of an area. Japan even had its own famous legendary archer who was taught the skills of the bow in a dream and who journeyed around Japan killing all goblins and creatures of evil, purifying all of Japan. Number 6. 3 heads in a cauldron. One Japanese legend that made its way into the samurai mind was that of the revenge of the swordsmith. This was once a king who gave a swordsmith extremely high-quality iron to make him a sword with. The smith, he secretly made 2 blades, a matching pair, a male and a female, which were bonded for all of time. The smith hid one sword and presented the king with the other single sword, much to the king's delight. But as time passed, the sword was constantly damp, and the king's ministers told him that the sword had a mate, and the dampness was tears for its other half, and the lamentation of their separation. The king had the smith executed for treason, but while imprisoned, the smith did not give away the sword's whereabouts. The smith's son, now of age, began his quest of killing the king. With the help of a trusted man, he formulated his plan. The smith's son bit off the tip of the sword and kept it in his mouth while the helper beheaded him. The helper took the decapitated head to the king, but the king said the head had a maligned look about it and refused to go near the head. The king then had the head boiled in a cauldron. When the king came closer to the head of the smith's son opened its eyes and spat the sword blade tip out of the cauldron straight at him. This was apparently enough to decapitate the king in one go. The king's head fell into the boiling water and began to fight with the head of the smith's son. The helper, seeing the king was winning, put his own neck over the rim of the cauldron and decapitated himself so that both heads could fight the king. And this is the legend of the three heads in a cauldron. Number 5. The badly behaved lord. There is a samurai tradition that allows and excuses the bad behavior of a warlord. Remembering that samurai clans passed their names and service down the generations and that samurai families lasted for hundreds of years, a single bad leader could bring about the ruin of a clan. Therefore, it was surmised that if one of the generations produced an evil lord, then it was the fault of an evil presence which haunted the clan household. It is said that this ghost that haunts the clan will possess certain samurai retainers who give their lord advice and whisper black thoughts into his ear. This presence stops him hearing good counsel, it forces him to replace noble advisors, it stops him from producing children, and will encourage him to drink, dance, and become reckless. The ghost will disapprove of military training and will bring about the end of a clan. Of course, none of this is the fault of the Lord, it is the evil that swells inside of his ancient halls, and it is never the fault of the clan. Number 4. The Chi of Death. We've all heard of the Eastern concept of Chi. Well, for the samurai, there was an entire role performed in the army for those who have mastered the deep and complex subject of Chi. These were Chi masters and esoteric tacticians. Chi is the energy that binds everyone together and is the life force of the world, the inspiration behind the Force in Star Wars, as a matter of fact. It is said that people can naturally see or be trained to see Chi in its many forms and colors, and some samurai trained their whole lives to become experts in Chi. These esoteric tacticians would look over the enemy castle, their own castle, and an enemy army. They would observe the shape and color of Chi and its relationship to the time and date, and then decide what it meant. Chi could herald both good and bad news. Examples are the Chi of destruction, the Chi of death, and the Chi of lost souls, each of which brings tidings of bad news and would allow the Chi master to see the future of the battle or the outcome of a war, which allowed a general to adjust their tactics in advance. Number 3. The strange marriage request. There was once a high-ranking woman from a samurai family, and she told her would-be suitors that if they wanted to marry her, then they must meet her in the dead of night and follow her requests. If they did not accept the terms she offered them, then they were bound to silence about what she asked of them. Night after night, samurai warriors met her in the darkness, and morning after morning, white-faced samurai all took their leave, none of them being able to do what she asked. Then one day, a low-level samurai, a warrior well below her station, took up the offer, and meeting her at night, they walked to a graveyard. There she dug up a freshly buried corpse of a child. She tore open the small round casket and began to eat the dead child. The samurai looked at her and then joined her in the meal, biting into an arm that she offered to him. To his surprise, it tasted delicious and he savored every bite. She exclaimed that she had found her brave warrior husband and that they were to be married. Number 2. The Three Lovers. There was once a most beautiful woman who had 2 samurai suitors, and a decision had to be made as to who would marry her. The problem was that she loved both of them with absolute equality and could never pick one over the other. As a result, a contest was held and they would both compete for her hand. Both of them were of absolute equal skill and neither could outdo the other. Next, a test of archery was selected and both warriors shot the same bird at the same time. In utter hopelessness, the maiden jumped into a river, but at the exact same time, both samurai caught her, but the weight dragged all 3 into the river and they all drowned. The bodies of the 3 lovers were recovered and buried together so that their equal love would last forever. Number 1. The Legend of the Loyal Son. Once there was a samurai boy who was called before his lord. The lord said that his father had betrayed the clan and he had been executed. The lord then produced a decapitated head on a board for the child to see. Everyone watched to see the child's response, hoping to discover if the head really did belong to the correct person and was not a substitute. The child quickly realized that the decapitated head was not his father's and that his father must have used an imposter to make good his escape. The boy, working out his father's strategy quickly, adjusted himself and saluted the head and gave it the correct custom and respect that a son should give a father. The boy then drew his dagger and cut open his own stomach, committing suicide so that he could follow his alleged father in the next life. The lord was totally convinced of the identity of the head, and the matter was resolved, allowing the father to escape and live out his life in freedom. So I really hope you enjoyed the video. As I mentioned at the top, it was put together in collaboration with Anthony Cummings. His new book, The Dark Side of Japan, it's packed full of spells, magic ritual, folklore, and samurai tales from Japan, similar to the ones that you heard about in this video. Now, if you'd like to get a copy of this book, you can click the link in the description below. And as always, thank you for watching.